Hello and welcome to the week ahead. It is currently Friday, March 20th, 6:10 p.m. here in very hot California. What a day today. So I wanted to talk about, of course, the market. I want to talk about what's happening right here, that we're scouting monthly higher lows right now on ES and NQ, SPY and QQQ. I want to talk about the subtleties of what I'm looking for there and the things that I'm going to be watching out for in the coming days. And I want to also talk about generally like how I think about monthly higher lows and how they work. First of all, I wanted to say one of the things that I've been doing, and I've been talking about this a little bit, is I've been working on this platform called EMA Riders, and the whole purpose of this platform is to identify stocks that are in themes that are trending and then find good locations to get involved, typically when a stock is riding a higher time frame moving average, and then you can find a lower time frame entry to get into that thing. So that's what this is all about. And this has become such a wonderful thing to do because every single day I go back and I review and I look at every single ticker that's in the system. I look at where it is on the chart. Is it still holding the rider? What things have happened that I missed? What things, like how have things been behaving, and learning more and more and more all the time. And today, as the market was coming in pretty hard, I'm looking at all the stocks that are trending and I'm like, they're not that bad. There's a few that are falling off and there's some that I'm less interested in, but they're all behaving quite well. And so there's something wonderful about this where it brings me a level of calm that I've never had before. I feel like before I had this awareness of what's trending in the market, what's not trending in the market, and was constantly monitoring, active themes like energy being a great example, where today tech is, and the market overall is dropping like quite rapidly, and energy is up at all-time highs. And so, it just brings me peace. It makes me feel less concerned, less worked up about what's going on. I can fully detach emotionally from what's happening on the chart and just be like, okay, where do I want to get involved? Like I'm not, like, it isn't a life or death thing. I'm aware that there's other trends going. I'm not going to be left in a situation where I've missed something, right? There's always going to be an opportunity. And so this has just been awesome. And I'm excited to share this with more people. And I hope that they get the same feeling of calm that I'm getting from this when you guys, if and when you take a look at this and join me on this little journey that I'm on. I think you're really going to like it. Okay, so back to this. So I'm zoomed out to the monthly time frame, and I want to quickly run through the monthly time frame on ES, SPY, NQ, and QQQ. So you can see here I've marked off the 2024 highs. I just feel like when it comes to scouting a monthly high or low, there's of course a bunch of things that I look for, but mostly I just want the thing that everybody else can see from outer space to happen. Everybody can see that there's that high from 2024 and that we're coming in towards it. Everybody expects a high or low to come to fruition because that's the most likely scenario. We've had this huge move up, we're having a healthy retracement, and we're trying to find a place for this to find a bounce. There's certain conditions that I want to meet, and I'll talk about what those are in a minute. But all in all, I'm watching that level on ES, I'm watching that level on NQ, I'm watching that level on SPY, and I'm watching that level on QQQ. And I think it's really important to actually pay attention to both what's happening on the futures chart and what's happening in the equity chart, because I don't know that it's going to, say for example, on QQQ, it might not get all the way down there. On SPY, it might not get all the way down there. We might get the bounce happening when that level is reached here in the futures. Or we might break it on here and we might catch it on SPY and QQQ. I think or somewhere in the middle, but the point is, these are stopping points that everybody's gonna see, and I need to be aware when those points are hit so that I can see and watch and monitor in real time to see, is this doing what I think it's gonna do in this spot where I think it's gonna happen? And so for me, there's actually 4 different locations that I really want to pay attention to, whether it's ES at this level, SPY at this level, you get the idea. So as far as the bigger picture goes, that's the main thing that I'm looking at. Now, when it comes to actually scouting the high or low, I'm going to talk through the conditions that I look for. So there's a lot more to my plan than I'm going to share right here. And I've shared this content in a video before, but I'm just going over it briefly because now it's finally in a situation where this might be happening sometime soon. So here are I like to keep my conditions really simple. I don't want to overcomplicate it. So I've shown you the levels that I'm looking at that I'm interested in. Doesn't mean that they're going to happen there, but that's the spots where I'm going to be the most interested. I want price to be at or below the monthly EMA 12, which it was reaching that level today on SPY and QQQ. I think it got below on both, but there was bounces into the end of the day, so we'll see. I'll get more into what's happening in the daily chart in a minute. I want it to be extended below the daily EMA 12. Now this is really key, and I'll show you with a screenshot in a second what I'm talking about. But I really want to have price be really stretched as far as it can be away from the daily EMA 12, because when there is a bounce, that's the level that I'm looking for it to get to on the bounce. And so the further I can get away from that, the higher the likelihood that I'm going to be interested in a trade, because and going long, because that's where I expect, it's just the further you are stretched, the more likely you'll bounce back closer to it from there. So the next thing is, nice to haves are ideally we get a gap down, maybe 2 or more. And it's funny because I didn't even realize I was looking at the chart today after hours, but we have had some gap downs here on QQQ and SPY. So I'll talk about that in a second too when I get to the daily chart. And finally, one of the most important is daily RSI needs to be oversold, in oversold conditions. And a nice to have would be, super stack oversold. So what that means is, we've got all the time frames leading up to the daily oversold, and ideally they're like really scary oversold, like in the teens or lower. And those are that's like the ideal way that I want to grab it. So you don't always get it that way. Sometimes the monthly higher lows come and they're not that vicious, but that's kind of the conditions that I'm looking for. So now I'm going to show you prior monthly higher lows that I've taken screenshots of and sort of talk through what I looked for in those and what I'm looking for in the next one. So the last one that happened was the tariff tantrum drop back in April of last year. And you can see here, the distance from the daily EMA 12 was big. And so we had a big flush down on this day. This looks like it was one gap down, then another move and another. So 2 gap downs, another move down, and drifting after hours, and a 3rd gap down. So that was pretty crazy. And the drop here was wild. And I will say that my first scale happened somewhere in here on this day. I think this was the day I returned from Japan, and I bought after hours on that day. After the close, and it was flushing lower, and we had multiple gap downs already. I bought my first scale there, and the next morning when I woke up, I think it opened somewhere down here. So all my conditions were met at that point. We had daily oversold, we were below the monthly EMA 12, we had multiple gaps down, and we were super extended from the daily EMA 12. And so I got another scale there. I didn't nail the bottom, and as it was flushing, I was like, I guess I'm going to have to add a 3rd scale. And that was my plan all along, was I like to do 3. And so what ended up happening on this one in particular, though, was on this day when I added here and somewhere down there, when it bounced up like this, I ended up taking some risk off right there. And then I took more off on this 2 days later when it had this big move up here. And then look, it says final scale on confirming daily higher low. That was back over here. So we had some chop, a daily higher low, and then we confirmed it when we got over this high here. That's where I actually added more back to my position for the continued move up. Okay, so here's QQQ on the daily time frame. Here's that 2024 high from back over here. And you can see what I'm thinking already, right? So we were at the monthly EMA 12 today. If we go to the monthly chart, you can see we touched it today, right? We're right there. So we did get the touch. We did not get oversold on the daily time frame here. And this did not feel like a big scary flush to me. It was definitely a nice move down, right? But nothing about this whole move down has felt like panic to me. That doesn't mean that this can't be the bottom. The bottom might have been set today. That might have been it right there. I don't know. I'm not predicting the future, but it just didn't feel like it to me. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was it. We're going to go up. We'll see. But here's what I'm thinking if that wasn't the bottom, okay? On the way down here, we've had these tops that have been sort of stopping just above the weekly EMA 12. So I'm kind of thinking the weekly EMA 12 is my guide. And actually, if you look at this on NQ, you can see it actually, the weekly EMA 12, this black line here, it has been resistance this whole way down. And so technically, I'm kind of kicking myself that this should have been part of my Trend Riders dashboard for a while now, because on the daily time frame, this has been a weekly rider down. And the same thing on ES, but ES has been a daily rider down. The blue line here is what's been holding it down, and it held again a couple days ago. So those are like money in the bank trades, and I should have been taking those. And I've got such a bull lean all the time that it was hard for me to flip on that. But once I realized it and I put it into my dashboard, I was like, oh, it feels so good. It's like one more thing that's great about the system is that it doesn't really care about direction. All you care about is trend. And so in this case, downtrend. All right, so back to QQQ. So that's what I'm thinking is we've got these resistances that we're going to be coming up if we get any bounces from here. You can see what I'm thinking. Like if this bounce from today holds, then I'm thinking we will probably get maybe a couple days of chop, weekly EMA 12 comes down, and we set a lower high and keep coming down. That's if that wasn't the monthly higher low that just happened, that's what I would be looking for if there's a bounce. Now, let's just look at this because basically this was a down day where we opened, it was a tiny gap down below this day, tiny gap down, a little bit of rally and then down. This was a big gap down here on Thursday that we went down and then rallied up and balanced. And then we did not gap down this day. So there actually have technically been on QQQ 2 gap downs already in this move since this lower high. But I kind of like what I was really hoping for actually was, if you go into the 30-minute time frame, this is what ended up happening today. Is here was the nice move down after balance all morning. We got this nice flush down, and then we got a real solid bounce into the after hours right back up. And so this is why I'm thinking like maybe we get a lower high again, because this bounce was legit enough that you can almost see this could end up being a little, inverse head and shoulders, or maybe it just drifts up and then we get a higher low up there. And you can see this doing something like that to get back up. But if that wasn't enough and the market wants lower, I do think we're going to get a rejection up there, and then things will come back down. I think because of the way that this blue line here, the daily EMA 12, has been getting basically ignored this whole way down, I'm not thinking at all about the daily EMA 12. I'm thinking about the weekly because that's the one that's been holding as resistance on NQ. And so when I'm looking at this, trying to figure out where would I want to get short on QQQ, because NQ has been so much clearer for resistance, you can see right here, it happened again. All these tops are right around weekly EMA 12. So if we get a bounce out of this, that's the spot that I'm going to be looking at, is that weekly level. And again, I don't think this, if we get a bounce, I don't think we're going to get a lower high on Monday. It'll take a few days to play out. It might not even be next week. Who knows? So keep that in mind. Now, let's go back to QQQ, and I'll finish this up. What if this bounce was nonsense and we actually gapped down on Monday? If we gap down on Monday, I actually think that could end up being, it's definitely the spot where I would take my first scale. I think that if this was negated and we opened up somewhere down here in this zone, which, by the way, let me show you what that was. So before we get down here, there was this whole area of balance that went on for a number of weeks, basically from July to September. I can see here from below, July through September. So yeah, 2 months. And there's a lot of price action that happened in there, and I can see price struggling with that zone. So I'm like, I could see us getting down in there. The other reason I think that makes sense is because if you put on daily oversold conditions, you'll see that sort of chop, that's right in the middle of that spot too. Now, keeping in mind, if we get a big bounce here and set another lower high, that cools off RSI, so you'll have to go deeper than to get RSI if that happens. So, take it with a grain of salt. So I think in my mind, best case scenario, if I'm trying to catch a monthly high or low, would be on Monday, we actually gap down. And on the gap down, then I'm looking for a bottom somewhere. That would be ideal for me. It's certainly a place where I'd be interested. If it was old me and I'm taking scales, that would be a great place to take a first scale down there. Because honestly, when price was dropping today and doing this, and we were getting down into this area that I knew I was interested in down here, closer to daily oversold, what I was thinking was, oh, that would be so cool if we started drifting down in the after hours. And I would actually take my first scale there on the off chance that we gap up the next day and continue up from there. That would be my first scale. And if we don't and we end up dropping lower, then I would take a second scale on the gap down. So that's what I was hoping for, and it didn't really play out. So I'm just sort of sitting here trying to put my plans together still. Now, the other thing to think about, and I'm not going to go into this right now because the video is already quite long, is that's the plan for the ETFs. Now, if you're looking for monthly higher lows and the ETFs are setting monthly higher lows, there's probably a lot of other names, individual names, that are going to be doing the same thing. And so I know in Chart Guys, Charting Man Dan was talking about this, and I think it's a really solid idea. Weekend homework should be looking at charts, trying to find what are the names that you're the most interested in that are setting up really nice for monthly high or lows, individual names. And that's totally up to you. It's your bread and butter. What kind of thing do you look for? Me, I know tech has been in a slump for a long time. Go to the weekly chart and look at XLE. XLE has been just flying, and I think that it's going to take tech and the market overall setting that monthly high or low for this to chill. And this is already into extreme overbought conditions here on the weekly chart. And look at that, we're at 83 on the weekly chart. This is my new version of RSI grid that I haven't released yet. When it's black background like that, that's historical extreme. Let's see what it's like on the monthly. Monthly is at 70, so monthly's overbought, not historical extreme. Weekly is 83 on XLE. That's bonkers. And so I think that might be the all-time high for historical RSI. I have to look back and see for sure, but it's definitely up there. And so I'm thinking once this starts to peak and roll over, that probably is going to mean the bottom is getting set for the market higher lows overall, because then this comes in, money rotates out of this, starts rotating back into other things. Ideally, it would be rotating for me back into tech. That's what I love to trade. And so I'd love to see some of the big names from tech setting monthly higher lows. I haven't looked at any charts yet, so I'm purposefully not naming any names, but that's my homework for this weekend as well. I'm gonna be looking at charts, trying to find what are the ones that I think look the best right now for monthly higher lows that I would wanna play as individual names. All right, that's it for me. I hope you guys find this helpful. I hope this sort of process of planning around trades, planning around larger time frame higher lows is helpful. I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. I love these opportunities. I feel like, to me, they're some of the cleanest, easiest to see opportunities, and so I love them, and I love talking about them, and could do it all day long. All right, have a great weekend, and happy trading. Hey, if you like my indicators on TradingView, and you like the content I'm producing here on this channel, please remember to like and subscribe.